are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the College Loop Podcast, episode 269 of the College Loop Podcast. I am Dylan Larck on Twitter, here to talk about Auburn's first SEC win of the season. And sadly, we are 9 weeks in, going into the 10th week, but Auburn's finally did it. And actually flipped the script on itself. And instead of getting a lead and then losing a lead, Auburn did not have a lead for a good chunk of this game. They were down 10-0, turned it around, then scored 24 unanswered, and didn't give up a fourth quarter lead that we've seen all season long. This is a game that Auburn needed. More than anything, Auburn needed to get over this hump. This was a giant obstacle. It was an eyesore to this entire team that this team did not know how to win. So going into this week, I mean, you're looking at Kentucky's defense. This is the team that held Georgia to only 12 points. Again, they lost by a lot to Florida, but other than that, this Kentucky defense is no laughing matter. They're one of the top defensive units in the country. And what did Auburn do to that unit? They rushed for 366 total yards, 278 of that coming from Jarquez Hunter. We finally saw an established run game from this Auburn offense, something that we've been asking for since week one, really. I mean, Jarquez has not really been a focal point of this offense in most games. I mean, you're looking at this. This is the 278 yards is the most rushing yards that any player in college football has had this entire season. And with that, moved him to number 1 in the SEC in rushing yards, moved him number 6 in career rushing yards at Auburn, and number 4 on rushing yards in a game as an Auburn Tiger. I mean, the top 4 in Auburn rush. It's like single game rushing yards, whatever it was. Either way, what a performance from Jarquez Hunter. This should be the Auburn offense throughout the remainder of the season. Jarquez Hunter. 23 carries for Quez. That is what Auburn needs to do to win football games. And we saw a lot of, going to the back of the season where you saw all the losses, Auburn would get behind and then try to pass the ball. And pass the ball is not this team's strong suit. It's what the coaches want the strong suit to eventually be, but it's not there yet. You don't have a quarterback that can do that. So we saw Auburn get behind early, and they kept running the football. And then Quez started breaking off large runs. Had like a 40-yarder, had a 50-yarder, or had a 50-yarder, then had a 47-yard touchdown run. He had a few of those breakout runs. You had some runs from Damari Alston. He had 42 yards or 38 yards in the game off of 9 carries. He had a 15-yard run. You had a couple of good runs from Peyton Thorne, but overall he had some runs that I was like, all right, maybe just take that play out of the book. And then, I mean, out of that, I mean, you didn't really see much of Jeremiah Cobb. He only had 3 carries for 2 yards. Didn't really get utilized correctly, in my opinion. But you saw an Auburn offense and how it's supposed to look. And hopefully going forward, I mean, Vanderbilt, again, it has been playing very well. Vanderbilt is number 28 in the country, and when it comes to rushing yards given up per game at 114, Auburn stands at 25th. It's going to be 2 heavy rushing attacks going against each other on Saturday. Auburn up into the 5.5-point favorite. But going back to this Kentucky game, Auburn found a stride. I mean, you didn't have a lot of passing yards this game, 172, as well as a touchdown from Peyton Thorne on an immaculate grab from Keandre Lambert-Smith. You also had 7 targets get thrown to KLS. You had 5 targets get thrown to Cam Coleman. Quez had 6 targets. Malcolm Simmons had 3 targets, caught every single one of those. Valdo had a couple of targets. And, I mean, across the board, I mean, Damari, Camden Brown, and Robert Lewis each had 1. Damari turning that 1 into a 22-yarder. Camden Brown turned his into a awesome first down off of, I think, a 2nd and 12, 3rd and 12, one of the two, where he got all of the yards he needed. And Robert Lewis had a great grab for his that got him a first down. But in this win on the offense, there are some things that still need to be worked on. Clock management was one of those things. At the end of the half, Auburn, for whatever reason, decided to call a play that required a lot of moving parts, a play that took off a lot of time off the clock because you're waiting for the play to develop. Peyton Thorne's in the backfield. The offensive line has not been pass blocking very well. Their pass protect has been one of the worst that I've seen in a while. And they have games where they don't look that bad, but then there's other games where they do this and give up a sack, and it just runs all the time off the clock. Auburn tries to bring the kicking unit out there, and good thing that it didn't happen because the clock expired before what would have been too many men on the field, because Auburn had, I believe from the picture I saw, 14 players on the field for a field goal. I don't know how players didn't realize they were someone was in their spot, or someone was too many people in their spot. But that's one of the issues that needs to be fixed. That's been something that we've seen throughout the season. Oklahoma game, one of those moments. And I will say it was a breath of fresh air to see Alex McPherson. I keep wanting to say Evan McPherson. Alex McPherson back out there. He did miss one field goal, but it was a 47-yarder, and he shouldn't have had to kick a 47-yarder because of a penalty that happened. They call it intentional grounding right before the play was about to go off, actually. And then that turned into a 47-yarder from, I think, would have been like a 35-ish yarder. Or 37-yarder. So he missed that one just a little to the left, but he made the 27-yarder in this, and it was just so nice to see him back out there. I think right now he is 20 for 22 in his career, and hopefully that means it's a sign that he is back to being able to kick the football more. I know they're trying to keep him away from doing anything too strenuous, but if he can make it, if he thinks he can do it, let him do it. That's all I got to say for that. But yeah, a huge ups to Alex McPherson for coming back and getting him his first field goal of the year. Just hate the offense had an intentional grounding call to make that one a missable one. But kind of looking at the offense, I'll keep doing that later on in the show. But this defense needs to be highlighted a lot. Now, this Kentucky offense is not really one of the league's best in any way, shape, or form. I don't know what ended up happening to Brock Vandegrift. I don't know if he got benched or if he got hurt, but he got taken out of the game about sometime in the second half. But Kentucky went up 10-0 early, and it looked like we were about to watch the best Kentucky's offense has looked all season long. They were running the ball very well. They were passing the ball very well. They were finding open receivers. Often, Dane Key had 10 targets, had 4 catches, which is great make sure he didn't catch 6 of those. 4 catches, 87 yards, and no touchdowns, which Auburn held all receivers out of the end zone. They had to give up a rushing touchdown. But this defense looked great. Whenever they turned it around, they started blitzing. They started playing a lot of man coverage. Jay Crawford got his first career interception, which long overdue. Should have got it last week, but he had to jump for it and had to basically do the Jordan logo to go catch that one. Finally got one. And also you had Kyan Lee get one where I know he was in the perfect place to grab the interception, but if he just keep his footing, would have been, 92, 98 yard pick six. And I'm starting to get a cough and fit from the humidity outside, and it's cold and hot every single day. But yeah, great defensive game for Auburn. And of course, this is not a vaunted Kentucky offense, but they have big playabilities. Dane Key is a really, really good wide receiver. Brock Vandegrift did have a good start to this game. 9 of 17 with an interception, 120 yards, but they took him out, and I still don't know why. I don't know if I just missed it or what it was. Sacked him a couple of times, and then Gavin Wimsett came into the game. He's their dual threat guy. The start of the game, he was only used to run the football, but then they tried to get him to pass it. 3 for 10 and an interception for him. But it kind of seemed like things kind of just took a turn for Auburn. And the question going into this week is, will Auburn be able to build off of this? Will Auburn finally find a way to take a win and run with it? Because Kentucky is no laughing matter. Kentucky took Texas all the way down to the wire, lost 27-24. And again, this Vanderbilt offense is led by Diego Pavia, who has destroyed a lot of defenses this season, as well as tore up Auburn's defense last year at New Mexico State. So a lot of things to prepare for. Auburn has not. I don't think. When's the last time Auburn took on a dual threat guy? Really, I mean, Brady Cook kind of is an improviser, but it's probably been since Taylon Green that Auburn's had a true dual threat guy that they've had to face. Or I guess Michael Hawkins would have been that last guy, but Auburn wasn't expecting to play him. But overall, I mean, great performance overall. I can't wait to talk about this more and more as we get through the rest of the season because, I mean, each thing to look at for this game, Keandre Lambert-Smith, I think people need to start putting him into the category of one of the best Auburn wide receivers that we've seen. I know he's only played 1 year, but he just makes things look easy. That touchdown grab was beautiful. And it's something that I really wish we would see more of when it comes to like one-on-one coverage in the back of the end zone. I mean, I know the Robert Lewis touchdown is always going to be held over everybody's head because of the fact that, Auburn lost that game because of that. And you see it happen in this game. You see Keandre Lambert-Smith get that grab over somebody. And I would like to see more of that with Cam Coleman. Cam Coleman was actually able to do more than just run go routes and stop and goes. You saw a lot of like out routes and comeback routes. You saw him get utilized in ways that he wasn't utilized before. He had 4 catches, 24 yards. Looking at Jarquez Hunter, able to find ways to use him outside of the run game. Check downs for him. Malcolm Simmons had some good grabs, and I love that we're seeing Malcolm Simmons a lot more in this offense. And you saw more Malcolm Simmons than you saw Robert Lewis, which I think kind of works out in your favor more because you're utilizing your athletic guys that you brought in through high school recruiting that you want to develop. And of course, over the season, I mean, Malcolm Simmons has looked better than outside of Keandre Lambert-Smith. I want to say most, if not all, of the receivers in this because he kind of just emerged during fall workouts. But there are some things I need to see more from this team. I mean, we're not seeing an explosive passing attack in this offense, and we're not going to see one this year. But there are moments where it's like, what are you doing? We had, I want to say there was a couple of trick plays that shouldn't have been called. And I'm not going to bash Peyton Thorne in this episode. I've done that enough. But there have been some plays where I was like, why are we calling it this way? Why are you calling a quarterback keeper when it doesn't really work? I mean, I would love to look at all the design quarterback runs from PT this year and see how many of them actually went for 5+ yards. Because against Kentucky, there were very few times where I saw a design quarterback run for Peyton Thorne that actually went a good chunk down the field, or at least like 6-7 yards. There was one, it was a read option that worked, and that's just because it was a read. But whenever it's like a quarterback draw or like a play action quarterback keep or whatever, it just never really seemed to get off the ground. And of course, Auburn's offensive line just finds ways not to block for Peyton Thorne in situations like that. So that's one of the things I would like to kind of take out of the playbook, because that's when I was watching this game. Of course, everyone remembers the first drive. The first drive, I think someone compared it to being like one of the least like. If you watch Auburn play that first drive and just watch and just skip, if you skip that part, just watch the rest of the game. That first drive might have been one of the worst drives Auburn has had all year, outside of just like any interceptions. Auburn had 3 plays that went for 0 yards, and they didn't run the ball once. It was 3 passes. I think one of them was a quarterback keeper, possibly. But three plays, 0 yards, and a punt. And then Kentucky did kind of the same thing, and then it kind of went back and forth a little bit before Kentucky finally got a field goal. And then after watching Auburn's offense for a good chunk of that little set, I mean, I thought the 3-point lead was a little insurmountable. And then they turned around and scored a touchdown. And then I got ready to throw in the towel. I was like, it's over. I mean, Auburn's going 3-9, 2-10, maybe. But I remember seeing ULM lost to South Alabama by 40 points. So 3-9. And a flip was switched. Something happened in just within Auburn where maybe, just maybe, we aren't as bad as we're playing. And then in the second quarter, Auburn gets that touchdown to Keandre Lambert-Smith. McPherson kicked the field goal before half, and Auburn should have won it by should have won 13-10, but they missed the opportunity for that field goal. And in the third quarter, Jarquez Hunter. He had that 50-yard rush. He ended off a drive with a 1-yard touchdown. He had a 45-yard touchdown run that I thought was going to call back for a foul, which I will say, good thing about Auburn in this game, and I need to make sure I go back and look and see if I don't remember a lot of penalties for Auburn. I mean, not a lot of big penalties outside the grounding call. But it seemed like Auburn finally found something where they weren't kicking themselves down. They were not forcing themselves out of getting them out of plays, getting them out of touchdowns, getting them out of long plays anymore. Like big explosive plays were not called back a lot because of penalties. If I'm not, and maybe some of them aren't coming my way, but here we go. Auburn only had one penalty for 10 yards, and in that regard, Kentucky only had one at that. So 2 penalties combined amongst these 2 teams, and it was something that was. I must be blanking or something. I think there was only one penalty Auburn had all game, and I think I'm just thinking of the wrong thing. But Auburn they look like they're supposed to. This Auburn team is way more talented than their record suggests. I mean, I was getting ready to say Auburn's going to be the best 3. It's going to be the best 3-9 team we've ever seen in college football history. I mean, they were not losing games by a lot. They were just finding ways to not win them. And I'm really excited about this Vanderbilt game. This Vanderbilt game is going to be never mind. Auburn had 6 penalties for 9 yards. Okay, maybe I remember the one, I guess. But Auburn found a way to get back into a game. Auburn found a way to keep the lead in this football game. And had they done this for Arkansas and for Oklahoma, and if they could have found a way to get into it versus Cal, I mean, the turnovers were just terrible. And the interception in this game by Peyton Thorne was awful, too. That's where I was immediately like, all right, I already saw people were saying they were going to turn the game off. But Auburn found a way to get back into it. Auburn found a way to keep a lead. Auburn found a way to win a football game. And with a very decisive stretch, Auburn has to play Vanderbilt next week. They have a bye week before they play ULM. Then they play Texas, and then they play Alabama. 4 games down the line. I mean, I don't think Alabama's looked the best. I think people can agree with me on that. Alabama's not looked the best. And I heard people say that if Auburn continues to play like they did against Kentucky, Auburn can find a way to beat Alabama, which jury's out on me for that. But right now, looking at Vanderbilt, I mean, they give people a lot of issues. They beat Alabama. They beat Kentucky. They almost beat Texas. And, down the line, Vanderbilt might – I don't think there's a team in the country that Vanderbilt can't beat. But if you're Auburn, you need to look at what you did well. And you need to build on it. You need to take that run game that was so explosive and keep doing it. You need to take the short passes, the quick pass game that worked really well. Peyton Thorne was 20 of 26 in this game for 172 yards. Like, he wasn't throwing down the field, but he was getting the ball to his receivers. And of course, I think the interception was about 20 yards down the field. But after that, you were very efficient. You were getting the ball to your playmakers within like 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and let them make the plays. You let the guys like Keandre Lambert-Smith catch the ball and make a few guys miss on his way to a 15, 20-yard gain. Let Cam Coleman catch a few slant routes over a receiver, a couple of out routes on the sideline. He has for sure hands. I think we've seen I don't know if Cam Coleman's had a drop ever since that Georgia game where he kind of talked about he was willing to drop another pass all year. Malcolm Simmons, of course, the jet touch passes worked very well for him. I don't think there's a single guy that I trust that I think of that can make Malcolm Simmons go down behind the line of scrimmage. That'd be really good to do that. But you're getting to guys the football that need to get the football, and you're not making them have to wait for it. You're not waiting for the play to develop down the field. You're not trying to force passes. You're watching the plays develop quickly. That way the offensive line has time to make a block. That way the wide receivers have time to catch the ball and run with it. So that's the kind of football Auburn needs to play throughout the remainder of the season. You won the turnover battle because you played it safe, passing-wise. You didn't forget the run game was one of your strengths. You utilized it a lot, like you need to. Going and playing Vanderbilt isn't going to – if you let Vanderbilt play their brand of football, they're going to beat you 9 times out of 10. You have to force Vanderbilt to pass the ball more. You have to force them to make them feel uncomfortable. we've seen Diego Pavia when he does feel comfortable, whenever the defense isn't getting to him, whenever the defensive backs aren't forcing him to make mistakes. Diego Pavia it could be a boom or bust player, and you have to make him bust in this game. You cannot let him make those plays that he was making against Texas. You cannot let him make those plays that he was making against Alabama. Brock Vandagriff isn't the best quarterback in the world. I will stand by this. Whenever Auburn fans were saying that they need Brock Vandagriff transferred to Auburn, I was one of the people saying that I don't want it. I didn't want Brock Vandagriff at Auburn. I don't think he could get it done. He was not a dual threat guy. He never really got an opportunity at Georgia, and I was like, he got moved from second string to third string to fourth string, back to third string. And I guess he played second string last year, but like, I never saw it out of him that he can get it done at Auburn. So I stand by that. Diego Pavia, on the other hand, I was all for Auburn throwing him a couple of offers in the portal. And because I saw what he can do. He is going to make this defense play worse than they actually are. Because that's the kind of player that he is. He's a Heisman candidate at that matter. I think he's like a top 15 in the Heisman race. He is he's basically Johnny Manziel in a way. He's Vanderbilt Manziel. And he's going to make you miss tackles. He's going to make you look stupid in coverage. But for 60 minutes of a football game, you have to be ready for it. You have to be ready for Vanderbilt. And that's not something I thought I was going to say in during week 1, that I was going to be scared of Vanderbilt by week 10. And going into this game, I mean, Auburn has some momentum going their way. You finally have a win. Hugh Freeze's press conference yesterday, he was emotional about this. And I mean, a lot of us were. I mean, we don't know how to act right now. We didn't know what it was like to win for a good chunk of the season. I mean, we forgot what it was like to win a football game. I want to say Auburn was on a 4-game losing streak, and you had New Mexico before that, and then before that you had a loss to Cal. So Auburn hadn't gotten a chance to experience a win in a while, and you finally get momentum. And you finally found a way to do it. And Vanderbilt is going to be a challenge. If you want a bowl game, you have to win 3 games left on the schedule. And one of those games is Texas A&M, which I can concur is the hardest game left on the schedule for Auburn. Texas A&M looked legit, especially with Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed is a dog of a quarterback. And to get a bowl game, Auburn has to beat Vanderbilt. You have to beat ULM. And you got to split one with A&M and Alabama. And I don't think Auburn's going to be in that conversation to get those 2 wins yet. But if I see Auburn go out and find a way to dominate Vanderbilt like I know they can, Auburn has more talent than Vanderbilt. That is no secret. Auburn has more talent than Vanderbilt. But look at where the team stand. Auburn has the edge at running back. I would argue Auburn has the edge at wide receiver. Auburn has the edge overall in most talent categories outside of quarterback, I will say. You can't get out coach. There's been too many coaching blunders during this season where you can't let it happen again. The clock management can't happen. Vanderbilt will control clock. They will. They'll eat up some clock. They're not built for quick passes down the field or quick drives. They are made to win the time of possession and make sure you can't control the football. Vanderbilt is going to test your ability to change the pace of the football game, and you can't let them do that. Against Kentucky, Auburn controlled the ball for 35 minutes while letting Kentucky have it for 24 minutes. Vanderbilt, if I'm not mistaken, had the ball against Alabama for 42 minutes. So take this win and build on it. Take this win, take this game that you did, and shift it. I'm not mistaken, no one really rushes for a lot on Vanderbilt. I mean, I said it earlier, they're top 28 team in the country when it comes to rushing yards allowed per game. But I'm trying to look back and just look at how good have they been. So looking at their schedule, I mean, no one on Texas was able to rush for a lot. I mean, against Texas, they gave up 106 rushing yards. Against Kentucky, they gave up, and I clicked the wrong button. Against Kentucky, they gave up 145 yards. Against Alabama, I mean, there was not a lot of plays to be made for Alabama. Alabama did a lot of theirs through the passing game. But rushing wise, Alabama had 84 yards. So for Auburn, I mean, their passing defense has been a little iffy. It has been. I mean, that's what Texas was able to do. They were able to pass the ball down the field. Quinn Ewers had 288 yards, but also had 2 interceptions. You can't turn over the football. Auburn didn't do it after that first interception that happened, I think the second, third drive into the game for Auburn. So Vanderbilt's defense is built upon making you make mistakes. You can't do that. And if you have momentum going your way, this offense has all the momentum in the world. This is where the offense should have been all season long, is running the football down the throats of a defense. And with Jarquez Hunter, I mean, you have the best running back in the SEC right now. I don't think that there's a running back in the SEC better than Jarquez Hunter. Jarquez Hunter currently stands number 11 in the country in rushing yards. He is number 1 in the SEC. But, I mean, if you go to just SEC rankings in general, let me just change it up on that. He only has 5 touchdowns. He has the least amount of touchdowns in the top 5 rushing leaders in the SEC by, other guys have double what he has. Jaquindon Jackson, number 5, has 592 yards. He has 10 touchdowns. Henry Parrish Jr. has 656 yards and 10 touchdowns. Le'Veon Moss at 3 has 757 and 10. Dylan Sampson has 838 and 17. And Auburn, Jarquez Hunter, 863 and 5. And number 6 is Diego Pavia with 4 touchdowns for himself, but he's a quarterback. He shouldn't be running it all that much. But even after that, I mean, you're not getting a lot of touchdowns out of Jarquez Hunter. You're going to need that. You're going to run the football a lot against Vanderbilt. You're going to, and you need to. Because I don't think, I mean, if you continue to pass the ball in short passes and short stints like you saw against Kentucky, but at this point, I don't trust that the team can do that. I've seen this Auburn team go from a great showcase versus in the week 1 to having a terrible one in week 2 to having a good one in week 3 to having a bad one in week 4 to having a worse one throughout the rest of that slate. So you guys have to prove that you can continuously build on yourself, that you can play good football for more than 1 week at a time. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Auburn, I don't think it's been a hot minute since I remember Auburn winning back-to-back games, if I'm not mistaken. So it was in the last year, the last time Auburn did it at that. So take this win, build on it, get better, and for the love of everything that is holy in this world, run the football. Run the football. You found a way to finally get it done. And what you did was perfect. 278 yards. I want to see Jarquez Hunter hit 1,000 yards on the season against Vanderbilt's defense. I want to see it. He's on. I think on pace is not even. It's like underselling it. But with 800 yards on the year, I would like to see another 200-yard performance out of Jarquez Hunter. I want to see this Auburn offense find ways to run the football. The best this Auburn offense has looked all season long have been whenever you gave the football to Jarquez Hunter, which is Kentucky and New Mexico, where he rushed for 278 against Kentucky. And again, as I said earlier, and always. And then after that, New Mexico, 152. And if you look at the other games where Auburn was kind of in it for a while, Jarquez Hunter had 97 versus Oklahoma. He had 91 versus Georgia. And he had a great 30-yard rush against Georgia, but you got behind and you started passing the football. Auburn finds ways to lose these games by taking themselves out of the equation, by taking their strongest piece of the team out of it. Against Oklahoma, against that defense, Peyton Thorne threw for 338 yards, but he shouldn't have had to do that because Auburn can run the football and should have controlled clock. I need to see what I saw yesterday happen in the next 4 games. Now, A&M is going to be an issue. Alabama, more than likely going to be an issue. But Vanderbilt, ULM, you can out-talent them at almost every position on the field. ULM, I want to say every position. Vanderbilt, some can go either way. But going into the remainder of this season, Auburn needs to continuously run the football. Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb need to be utilized. Jeremiah Cobb needs to be utilized correctly. He is going to be the guy you need to put around the end, the guy that he runs in the same fashion that Malcolm Simmons would. Run him around the edge, and he'll get you some extra yards. He did it against Missouri. Damari Alston can run either way. He's an explosive player. Run the football. Auburn should be running a run offense. And, if you establish the run game, it opens up the pass game. So instead of trying to force passes, you can run the football. And then eventually people try to key in on the run game. Then that opens up your opportunity to get the ball down the field. Opens up opportunity for you to call play action plays. And one thing that I really loved about this game in total, we talked all year how the RPO has not worked for this team. When it comes to making an option play, 9 times out of 10, Auburn did not make the right call. Auburn did not make the right decision on an RPO. So, didn't see it a lot versus Kentucky, which I am stoked for. I have been so sick of watching Auburn try to run the RPO all season long. And this playbook that was used for Kentucky should be used for the remainder of this season. Again, I cannot overstate that enough. I'll be saying it all week long. But yeah, as we stand, Auburn will play Vanderbilt at 11:45 a.m. on Saturday in Jordan-Hare Stadium. I believe tickets are already sold out. But Auburn stands at 1-4 in the SEC. I think they're currently 14th in the SEC, jumping up over Kentucky, which is nice. I don't have to say Auburn is 15th anymore. Pretty much taking themselves out of the equation of being the worst team in the SEC. But Vanderbilt is going to be an issue. And, of course, A&M has been pretty lights out. A&M, by the way, could win the SEC outright. They have a pretty tough slate of games ahead of them, meaning they have, South Carolina next week, which never know what to expect from South Carolina. Then they have New Mexico State, which isn't going to be an issue. Then they travel to Auburn, Alabama, take on us. And then they end up the season with Texas. So I don't think it's out of the equation that Texas A&M could just go undefeated the remainder of the season. So keep an eye out for them, as well as the remainder of the SEC, which is going to be a bloodbath to the finish. But Auburn's out of it, which is nice. Auburn doesn't have to worry about strategize for that. So with that, I don't have much more to say about this game. It's nice to talk about the win, not talk about a win. Auburn won a football game, and it felt great. I finally felt joy watching an Auburn game for the first time in weeks. I didn't have to spend most of the game in silence, wondering how many more days it is till basketball season, which basketball season officially really started the day. Exhibition game. Talk about that more on the Tuesday show. Talking about how Auburn played pretty well defensively, as well as, didn't shoot the ball well from the three-point line. But overall, Auburn scored a lot of points for having a bad night shooting. So with that, I'll go ahead and end the show there. Thanks for watching this installment of the College Loop Podcast. I'm Dylan Larck at YouBoyTheThing on Twitter, and of course at Dylan Larck on Instagram. Check me out over there. Also check us out over there at the College Loop on every single social media platform, as well as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Amazon Music for the audio versions of the show. And before I get you out of here, let me just let you know that we have merch on the warreport.com. Go to the shop. First page, College Loop hat, which I'm currently wearing right now. Second page is a Phil Loopy t-shirt. Both available, $25 each on warreport.com. Most comfortable items to wear in your entire life. You're running out of time for Halloween. I don't know if you'll get it for Halloween, but in that, you got a nice thing to wear for Thanksgiving. So with that and everything being said, thank you all for watching this installment of the College Loop Podcast. And as always, War Eagle, and we are on a win streak.